Welcome, faculty, alumni, and students. Again, my name is Stephanie Nakano. I also respond to Steph. I'm a junior here at San Jose State, majoring in PR. I'm delighted to be here tonight to host this humanities panel with our distinguished alumni. And I would love to start this off by having our alumni introduce themselves. So I'm just going to go in the sequence that I see on my screen, but I'd like to present the prompt to ask our alumni to introduce themselves by stating their name, their degree, a company or organization, your current job title, and the brief description of your current role or job. So I would like to ask Dana, may you introduce yourself, please?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Dana DeMercurio. I am an alumni in the English department at San Jose State. I have a bachelor's degree in English literature. I also have a master's from Cal State East Bay. I currently am a tenure track professor at San Joaquin Delta College here in Stockton, California. I also, while I'm in my tenure track, also adjunct at other community colleges. And that is me. I think I may have missed an answer to one question. No, I didn't. That's it. So a brief description, I'm a professor. So you're all students or faculty or staff. So I think you understand what that is, but I teach communications now. Actually, I do not teach English. I teach predominantly public speech, but I also teach interpersonal communication, intercultural communication. I do have a emphasis on media in my degree, but I don't teach media, unfortunately. That's a separate department at our college. But before that, I was a TV producer, so I was able to use my media degree doing that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. May I ask Geena to introduce yourself, please?
Oh, hi. So I'm Geena. I earned my bachelor's degree at SJSU in humanities. And then there's like a concentration in that, which is like Asian studies. And then I also earned my master's degree just very recently in linguistics at SJSU. And at the moment, I'm currently working for Meta as a data labeling analyst. I got I entered the job like a few months ago, so I'm still learning the major responsibilities of what it means to be in that position. So as far as I understand, my responsibilities just mostly pertain to like a lot of quality assessment for improving Meta's like upcoming products.
All right, thank you so much, Geena. May I ask Erika to introduce yourself, please?
Hey everyone, my name's Erika Hernandez. I am the Associate Director of the Academic Skills Program at Berkeley Law. And what that means is that I make sure that all students at Berkeley Law feel like they have the skills and support necessary to achieve any academic goals, while also building some professional skills that they can take on into the workforce. I also co-teach a class for 3Ls, which is third-year students at the law school. And I manage a fellows program, which is sort of like an intern program that serves as mentors for first-year students. In terms of my degree, I graduated from San Jose State with a philosophy degree and a minor in political science.
Thank you so much, Erika. Ernest, may I have you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Ernest Martinez. I got my bachelor's degree in philosophy from San Jose State. Also, stoked to see another one of us here. I work at a company called HealthVerity as a senior healthcare data analyst, which is kind of a mouthful, but essentially what that means is I kind of utilize data practices, coding and stuff to help facilitate the sale and utilization of our medical data asset for studies, clinical studies, epidemiological studies, sometimes marketing, but basically our product is kind of like so diverse that we're like all things medical data. So yeah, I've been doing this for not a year yet. I think I started at this particular company in February, but I've been doing clinical data science for like 5 years now.
Thank you so much. And Danielle, may I have you introduce yourself, please?
Of course. Hi, I'm Danielle Roberts. I got my BA in English Literature with a minor in creative writing from San Jose State. I currently am a senior technical writer at Google and focusing on internal docs currently, but I've done external developer documentation for end users, for developers, and now for internal developers.
Wonderful. Have I missed any panelists today? I know we introduced our faculty already, but I just wanted to make sure. No? All right. So I have some questions, and I don't particularly think there's an order, but I'm happy to pick if nobody raises their hand. So the first question that we have is, how did you decide on your major at San Jose State? Dana.
I can start that. So my journey was interesting, and some of you may be too young to remember this. So in 2007-8 was when the market crashed, and I was just getting to San Jose State at that time. And my major when I was in community college was business, and I wanted to emphasize on real estate and become a broker. Not a good time when the market crashed. So I had to immediately pivot. I remember sitting and meeting with a counselor for the very first time in my college career and saying, not only is the market crashed, but I'm really bad at math. What are we going to do? Help me, please. I can't keep taking any more of these math classes. And she really worked with me and asked me some really interesting questions. And we came to the consensus. She immediately kind of just dropped her pen and said, you need to be an English major. I started taking all of the classes at the junior college where I now teach. So I'm an alumna of where I teach currently. It's kind of a full circle moment. And I started taking all the classes and was immediately invested. My family lived in Cupertino at the time, and I thought, let's go to San Jose State. I looked up everything. I took the classes and I really enjoyed it. So that was how I got into English there. And I have never regretted that choice. I think it was such a great degree to have, a wonderful foundation for really anything that anyone wants to do later on in their career. You can never go wrong with an English degree. So I think it was a great choice. Yes. And Noel was one of my professors. So it was a wonderful, wonderful choice to have that I did make.
I can keep the train for the English lit degree going. So I started actually just a little bit earlier. I graduated around when the recession was going on, which was fantastic. But I started off as an art major, studio art major. And then I was just like, oh no, I'm not ever gonna be able to earn a living as an artist. I must go where the money is, which is poetry. And so I switched over to being an English major. But honestly, it was because I found that my skills of my written communication and skills of communication were going to be the most easily transferable of my skills to a variety of different things that I could pursue in a way that potentially focusing on visual art wasn't for me. I didn't have the talent for it. So I decided to pursue English literature because I, one, love literature and deeply analyzing things and trying to pick out the threads of what things mean, etc. That deep analytical understanding helps with a lot of what I currently do, and also the ability to really solidly and clearly communicate something to your intended audience. So that's how I ended up choosing what I chose.
Ernest.
Yeah. My reason for choosing philosophy was just incredibly selfish. I found it to be fascinating. I'd taken one course with not sure if any of you guys know Professor Michael Jordan, but he's just kind of really a big reason why it was that I decided to go into philosophy. I had taken a class with him, and then he had liked the way that I argued in class, I guess, and he invited me to join the debate team. And then I was kind of just engulfed in all things philosophy. So I think I just loved it so much. And that for me personally, it was just hard to imagine going to school for a very, very long time studying something I didn't love. So kind of ran with that instinct.
Oh, well, I guess I'll go. Well, I'm similar in a way, except um like my reason for choosing my major was also out of like my own interests, particularly in language, because I always spent a lot of like, what is it, like my childhood, like trying to decipher like the language that like my parents tend to mix up a lot because they speak both Vietnamese and like Cantonese at the same time. And after that, I like decided like, oh, like I wanted to try to learn other like languages. So I like did a lot of self-studying of like Japanese and Korean afterwards, and then moved on to like formal classes. So that really sparked my interest, and hence why I ended up doing my master's degree in linguistics, because I guess it was a pretty good foundational way of understanding like how language works for me in the more fundamental way. So that's my reason for my major at SJSU.
I can go next. I don't know if there's anybody else, but I majored in philosophy, and I was actually a community college student first. So when I first took philosophy and an introductory course, I thought it was just another way of really looking at human decision making and really understanding, how people come to make choices and how they build their belief systems. And it felt like a lot of critical thinking went into philosophy versus other areas that I really enjoyed, felt more like memorizing things, and that felt really easy to do and not like something that was challenging for me. So I decided to do philosophy. And then when I got to San Jose State, I think it was an incredibly great decision because the philosophy department, I don't know if it's still the same now, but it was a ridiculously small department. So there was so much support for students in the department, and I really got to experience a lot of different things and really build great relationships with my professors because there weren't very many of us there. But the other reason why I also chose philosophy is because I was undocumented for most of my life. And for me, education was never something that I looked at through a very practical lens, because when I was in school, there was no deferred action for childhood arrivals, so there was no opportunity to actually work. So when I thought about what am I going to major in, I never thought like, what is the career path for me available, because there was no career path, because there was no ability to legally get a job. So it really ended up being, what do I enjoy? What do I want to learn? What am I interested in? And that really sort of helped shape what I decided to major in.
Awesome. Next question, and this one's kind of a doozy because I really love asking this. What are key skills, knowledge, or experience that students need to be successful in their chosen field? And how can students build experience while at SJSU? I know, Erika, you just touched upon, building the relationships with your professors because it is a smaller college, but our other panelists, how did you do it? And what was your experience like? I'm gonna pick on somebody. I'm gonna ask Danielle. How was your experience?
Sure. So some of the key skills and knowledge for my profession, which again is technical writing, I like to say that we are professional question askers. And actually, when I applied at Google in my interview process, I made the argument that technical writing and poetry are essentially the same thing. They require the same skills. They're all about taking very complex concepts and distilling them to their essence to communicate them clearly to your audience, whether it is you're trying to break down like the deep universal mysteries of love, or whether you're trying to break down the like deep universal mysteries of build infrastructure. Both of them require the same skills. So for me, the things that I find myself using the most often are the ability to like deeply ask questions, interview people, the ability to synthesize information, distill it to its essence, organize it cohesively so that people can scan through it quickly and find what they need. The ability to learn quickly is also a very helpful thing for a technical writer. One of the things I love about my job is that I am essentially a professional student forever, because I am going around all of the time to all of these brilliant people who are making new things. And it's my job to like slurp that knowledge out of their brain and communicate it to others. And so let's see here. So yeah, ability to synthesize information, ability to ask questions, ability to organize, learning quickly. I think that, and writing well. Those are all the things that come in most handy in my job.
Ernest.
Yeah,
volunteering.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the skills that are kind of most needed to be successful in my field. So again, my field's basically like clinical data science, right? I would say that it kind of requires like a mixture of a few things that probably wouldn't be surprising, right? Like analytic capability, being able to problem solve and critically think and work through puzzles. Whenever you're like coding anything in any type of programming language, it typically requires that you kind of have that ability to think in that way. But the thing I think that surprised me the most as I've been making my way through various companies that require this kind of work is that communication in tech is like way more valuable than I ever would have imagined that it was. And I know this because there was times when I was not as technically savvy as I am now. And I was made aware that I was hired for certain positions on the basis that I was this technical, but very able to communicate what little technical ability that I had. So I never would have thought that that would have been the case, right? You always assume that when you're trying to get a job at one of these types of companies, you're going to have to be some technical genius, but really there's such a strong need for being able to take, a concept and explain it to different stakeholders. And that, I didn't know that that's what I was going to be utilizing from my education nearly as much as I have. So it was actually quite surprising.
How about Geena? Can you tell us what key skills and knowledge or experience do you think would help students be successful?
Well, I feel like everyone elaborated particularly communication skills pretty well, so I would add on to that. But I guess another thing outside of just communication skills is, I guess, I'm not sure if it's a skill or anything, but I guess more like a willingness to like participate in a lot of things that you believe that you might be able to grow in, and even if you might think you might not be able to, but there might be some other people who can see your potential and your ability to grow within certain situations. So I think that's one key thing. I guess like perseverance. Yeah, that's the word. And also to maintain being curious. I think being curious is also important. Like it allows you to like actually show that like, oh, you don't have to necessarily know everything, but it also is a way for you to connect with like other people who you're working with. So I think that's what I have to say about that.
Dana, did you have something to add?
I think everyone's answers are going to be very similar, and I'll piggyback off everybody because I think as an educator, all of these things are extremely important, especially as someone who teaches communication. I can't emphasize enough how important strong communication skills are, written communication skills, oral communication skills. But to go just a level deeper is group communication skills, really understanding the skills required to work with other people, to not be siloed, to not assume that because you work in tech that you're going to be behind a computer and not talk to people all day long. Like Ernest has said, he actually really needs those communication skills to be successful. And unfortunately, we're in an environment where so many students, and maybe some of you here, recognize that you do feel quite siloed and you do feel alone and you're not getting the communication skills that you need. One of the things that you will need in any environment, any career path you choose, is being able to work with other people, to be able and willing and excited even to participate, to also advocate for yourself, to speak your voice, to get people to understand your thoughts in a coherent way. I think that is extremely important and very underrated and not spoken about honestly enough. And that's what I teach my students is especially in my public speech classes, if you want to be successful, you have to learn how to advocate for yourself, no matter what it is. There's no sense in moving through life without utilizing the gift of your voice and sharing your thoughts with other people and seeing what can flourish from that. So that would be what people need in my environment to be successful.
And Erika, did you have anything to add to this?
I do. I definitely want to just emphasize how I strongly agree with everybody else. All those skills are definitely really critical to being successful, I think, in any career. But I think for me, so I was an attorney for a number of years before I entered education, and even now in this role, I think two things that have been really critical are, aside from communication skills, is listening. Listening is so important, and also empathy. I know that that's such a skill that you can't teach as well as you can others, but I've been in a number of different fields and in a lot of interview panels, and a lot of the time one of the things that we talk about, you know, after realizing everybody's brilliant who is applying to these jobs, say who will relate and empathize with our clients, whoever it is that we're serving, with other team members. So I think empathy and listening are really critical, but also I think something that isn't talked about enough is really like boundary setting. I think as an attorney and as somebody who has a large number of clients and projects, it's really easy, especially when you're younger in your career, to say yes to everything, or to feel like you have to say yes to everything, and you end up overwhelming yourself, potentially not doing as well as you could be doing in some areas. And then, you know, you're sort of sinking a little bit there and having to ask for more help than you would have wanted to. But I think, you know, really being able to say no to others and to yourself, even when you're really excited about certain things, is really important for me as a student at San Jose State. I was a peer mentor through Peer Connections, and I was also an instructional student assistant in the philosophy department with Professor Shaw. And I was in the record clearance project, and also the ethics bowl team with the philosophy department. So I think all of those are really critical in building so many of these skills, whether it was critical thinking and oral advocacy, or just building on those like empathy and listening skills.
Thank you so much. Now, here's going to be the toughest question for tonight. How do you actively network today with sites like LinkedIn, professional orgs, social events, community service? There's so many options. So what would you give as guidance to our students, how you would network today? I'm just going to go right back around. So Danielle, may I please have you?
So I confess I don't do as much networking as I should, but the ways in which I have networked in the past and the ways in which I still network in some ways, conferences tend to be really, really helpful for getting a foot in the door, for getting some face time with other people who are in the field that you're in or the field that you want to be in. And so two conferences in particular stand out for my profession. For me as a technical writer, Write the Docs is one of the best ones. It's small enough that you can often get face-to-face time. There's often recruiters who are there. You can learn new things from the talks that are being given, and connect with like the panelists. And then for folks who are like women, non-binary folks, Grace Hopper Conference is also the like Women in Tech Conference. There's also Lesbians Who Tech in San Francisco. So if you're queer, that is another great resource to get in touch with other like technical writers, other people in tech, and get some introductions in. So I would say most of my networking has been in person at conferences, whether it's external to Google or internal to Google.
How about Ernest?
Yes. Yeah. So my answer, I also probably don't do as much networking as I should. Haven't attended a ton of conferences. And I anticipated this would probably be my most controversial answer today. So please, if this is not your thing or you think maybe it's odd, that's fine. But I have tended to find that just networking via being like actively social with people that you work with. It's not something I typically find listed when looking through articles on how to network, but there's just been like so many advantageous opportunities that have come up for me just as a byproduct of going to the thing, right? Like staying after, taking these people out for, drinks and appetizers and just hanging, talking with people, making friends. Of course, that has to be like supplemented with good work, but when you have both of those things and people kind of know you, it really always tends to prove true that people like to work with people that they get along with, right? And I think that being personable in the office and just having fun with people, not too bad, right? That typically tends to be a good strategy for me.
Thank you. Are there any alumni that have this networking game down? Just wanted to throw Dina.
I can speak on it. So for me, working on a college campus, I have thousands of faculty, staff, admin, managers that I'm constantly networking with. So we, as a system, are already doing a lot of that. But I personally, on top of that, I do a lot of work with my union. So my local union and our state union. I serve on legislation and advocacy committees at the state level that we get eyes on legislation that isn't getting passed yet. And we look to see if this is something that we as a community college institution in the state of California want to endorse. Is it something we don't want to endorse? We work with legislation at the state level and talk to these people. We go to their offices. So I do a lot of networking in that way. So not just immediately at my college, but anywhere that it's going to impact the college, that's going to impact students, it's going to impact faculty or staff. I'm doing all those different things. As a community college instructor, we also need to be doing things in our immediate community. So I do serve on boards for my community, in particular literacy boards that help fund literacy programs in my community. I'm in Stockton and our literacy rate is quite poor here. We're very illiterate in this area, which is a problem. So I serve on boards that help provide funds to help build better literacy programs, give books to local community what am I trying to say? Schools in the area to build literacy skills for our students. So I am constantly doing these things because I think the more that I do these things, I feel better about myself. I feel better about the change I can make in my community and in my, not just my immediate area, but my state, knowing that I'm in some way impacting laws that are being created that impact me as a community college instructor and therefore impact my students. So.
Thank you. Erika, did you want to add to this particular subject?
Yeah, definitely. So I don't think I'm in the part of my career where I'm doing a whole lot of networking either. But I think through the years, one thing that's been really helpful is maintaining my connections, not just being focused on building new connections. And I think being able to maintain connections from back home, from community college, from high school even, and in law school has been really pivotal to my career trajectory. There's been times where, for example, right now at Berkeley Law, when I was a student, I was part of hiring committees for student services. And I hired half of the staff that was there last year as a student. And when I came in to interview, they were my interviewers. And I had already, interviewed them when I was a student. So they remembered me. The dean of students was the same person. And I had maintained my relationship with them through the years. And the job that I have now, I sort of got poached by one of my former professors when I was already at the law school, because again, I had maintained my relationship to them. So a lot of my networking hasn't necessarily been building new connections, but really solidifying the relationships that I already have with people, not being afraid of asking current connections like, hey, I'm really interested in this career path. Do you happen to know anybody in this field? And having those individuals make connections for me. So I've, done a lot of cold sort of messages on LinkedIn to people that work at companies that I want to be at. I've had other people do just interview connections for me. And then I interviewed for roles at those organizations. So a lot of just relying on my current network and being able to maintain that has been most of the sort of networking that I've been doing.
That's great. And Geena, did you want to add to this subject?
I feel like everyone did very well in elaborating how their networking game is. I think I'm still learning like how I would personally best actively network with people. I think because my path to where I am right now is pretty messy, where I like worked a number of jobs in the past too, and I did a lot of volunteer opportunities, but I think adding on to that, I think it also helped me, I guess, from wherever I was in the past, also helped me build up my own like network in a sort of way where I'm able to like maintain contact with them and like see how they're doing, just like maintain curiosity of like people who I was in contact with the past. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
If I may make one quick last comment, just because this is useful for people to know. While you're networking, I would heavily encourage you to like just assume that people may want to have you serve in some apprentice type role. I think that's another thing that's like surprised me a whole lot as I've gotten older. It's just finding that like people who are in positions that you see as being able to help you more often than you think want to help you. It's just like you would think they don't, because you might think of yourself as like a pest or something, but go ahead and network with that person who like is in that position. It's often something that they would maybe find flattering, and it gives them a lot of fulfillment to help you out. So like, don't be afraid to do that.
That's really great. And so that's actually something that I was going to ask of this group, this panel, and our faculty. If you're interested in connecting with our students, I would love for you to post your LinkedIn or a method to connect with our students in the chat so that they know how to reach you. That would be really amazing for us as a resource. And so I just wanted to throw that in there, that if you are open to connecting, I believe our students are very much interested in wanting to connect. And here's going to be the easiest question for tonight. And I swear it's super easy. I love hearing words of affirmation. And this question is absolutely asking for affirmation. What advice would you give to current students to succeed at San Jose State and in their job searches and careers? Any takers as the first one?
Can I go? I think one thing I found really helpful when it comes to job hunting and whatnot is like keeping record of all the places that you applied to. And then even when you got to the point of the job interview, is to also like write down notes right after the job interview of like what questions they asked and like how you answered them. And then afterwards, probably rewrite a better answer. That way you could keep record of whatever you had, like job interview notes, so you can go back to them again, because sometimes some places might ask similar questions again, and you could keep record all in one place.
I can go next. So the way that I found success at San Jose State was by participating in a lot of extracurriculars. I mean, well, not a lot, but I participated a lot in the extracurricular of the Ethics Bowl as well. I was real kind of like attached at the hip to all of that initiative and competition. So It was, just, I guess, engulfing yourself. When you engulf yourself in something and it's not just more like a side thing that you're doing, but the main thing that you're doing, it really helps a lot. And then in terms of what I would advise to be successful in your job search, this is a bit of a weird strategic move, but I've seen a lot of people make it, and I would actually, if anybody agrees that this is a good strategy, I'd be interested to hear that. But I've noticed that some people who really want to work at a company in a particular position will sometimes just apply for a job at the company in a lower position, even if just for the sake of like learning the product, learning the culture of the company, learning some of the fundamentals of being an employee at that company. And then once they've got that down, then they go ahead and start applying for those higher positions, the more technical positions. And typically companies love to see that. So I think people often get discouraged by, this process of, why can't I get my first data science position? When really they should have just been trying to get some sort of maybe, product support position and then move into that other one. So, don't be afraid to kind of like take something for experience. I think it's a good strategy.
I will plus one to that. The strategy of like finding a company you like, getting your foot in the door, and then like working your way up. As with regards to if you're applying for jobs, you don't have to meet 100% of the requirements. If you meet 50%, apply. Because sometimes it's just like, I know in the beginning, I was like, oh no, like I don't meet exactly 100% of these things. Just apply anyway. If there are things on that list that you're like, oh, I don't know how to do that yet, but I'm pretty sure I could figure it out before they interview me, just go through and try to see if you can like brush up really quickly on it. For me, some of the things that are helpful for like job search and career, getting an internship is helpful. I didn't do it personally. I was working full time, so I didn't manage to land one, but I have seen that is really helpful for people who I have mentored who are interns at Google. Looking at the companies you like and admire, applying for internships there, applying for entry-level positions, trying to chat with people to see what their interview process is like, research what the interview process is like so you can study in advance. Maybe you can, sometimes people post interview questions that they've experienced online, so you can get a sense of like what that interview will be like and prepare yourself in advance. I really like what Geena said about like making a note stock for things. I have a note stock over here for this. It is a wonderful tool to use when you're in the process of talking with people. And then if you are trying to be a technical writer, or if you're in some sort of communication role, make sure that you're mirroring the language of the job offering and look up their style guide. For tech writing, especially, look up their style guide. Make sure you're following their style guide because they will notice that. Anybody who's in sort of role like mine will notice if you're following, or it will just flow, right? As far as while you're still at San Jose State, if you want to be a tech writer and you're in the English department or in similar departments, there are two things that I would recommend. One, take editing classes. It is essential, and it is the thing that will help you out the most in your tech writing career. Get really, really skilled with editing and just cutting out as many words as possible. Editing classes were invaluable to me. And then I wish I had done this. I didn't do this, but try to take at least 1 or 2 computer science classes if you're going into tech writing. Just getting the basics of computer science so you have a shared language with your interviewers and with your engineers when you onboard is really helpful as well. You can also find these things on the internet and just sort of get familiar there, but having it in a structured academic environment would be useful.
I can go next. To piggyback off of what some people have already said, internship, number one, is the highlight of my academic career was doing an internship. I moved across the country. I lived in Boston for half a year and had some amazing experiences and was able to come back and not immediately get a job, but was able to branch out a little bit further because of the experience that I had received through that internship. So I've talked about advocating for yourself. Don't be scared to really put yourself out there. In today's society, it's so easy to be discouraged when you don't get something immediately, when we don't get that immediate gratification of, oh, I've applied for this job, I should get this job. Recognize that this is going to be it's going to take time. You may not get a job right out of college, and that's okay. You may do something in the meantime, like Ernest was talking about, of maybe apply for a different position that might be a lower position and work your way up. That's what a lot of people are having to do right now. You might not land exactly where you want to fresh out of college, but having an internship to start is great footing. If you can study abroad, build your communication skills in different cultures, learn about other areas of the world, get your mind out of what we do here in Western culture and learn about other cultures. That will give you a great grounding as well in any workplace you go into. And then to be successful at San Jose State, get to know your instructors, have conversations with them. Do not, I tell my students, when you come into my classroom and you beeline it for the back of the room, you're sending me so many signals about where you are and what you're doing in my class. And be aware of what signals you're sending to other people around you, your instructors, your peers, faculty, staff, whomever it is. Recognize that we want to build relationships with our students and really invest your time there. And again, when it comes to job seeking, just don't be discouraged. Cast wide nets if you have to. Whatever you do, I remember when I was, before I went into grad school, I think after grad school, I had an Excel spreadsheet of all the jobs that I applied to. And that spreadsheet went on for, could have been a nightgown. It was a very long list of jobs. And it didn't matter because ultimately it led me to where I am now. And that process at the time may have sucked, but I look back on it with a very grateful heart. So just kind of forest through the trees is my suggestion to you. Kind of look at the end goal, not just what is immediately happening to you. Just imagine what it could be instead. Positive thinking.
In terms of being successful in my career, I've been an attorney and now an educator. So I think when thinking about those career paths, I think what's been most important for me to be successful, or what I would recommend for students that are trying to be an attorney, would be to find things that you enjoy and just go for it and do well. Because I think as undergraduate students, there's this false idea that you need to be a political science major or philosophy major to go into law school, when really all you need is good grades and a good LSAT score, aside from like a good resume. And if you are miserable doing political science and you're doing it just because you think that's your way of getting into law school, you're not going to have the best options. So find something that you really enjoy and excel in that thing. I think that goes for the networking as well. You don't have to go and network with other professionals. You can just go to a club based on something that you really enjoy and meet good people there. And you just never know what one connection will lead you to. Which leads me to something else, which I think is important, whether you want to be an attorney or whether you're trying to be successful as a student at San Jose State, and it'd be to be kind to people. You never know where anybody is going to end up, and you don't just want to be nice to people because you don't know where they're going to end up, but you can be applying for a role 10 years down the line, and one of your classmates could be the interviewer. And if you are kind to that person and that person remembers, hey, Erika was nice to me when we were in class, or Erika shared her notes with me, they are going to have good feelings about you in that interview and are going to want to support you. In the similar vein as Ernest said earlier, I think it was, people want to help you. So don't be afraid of letting people know what it is that you're interested in. And one of my friends during law school used to say, I want to be a judge. And I'm going to tell everybody that I want to be a judge because I don't know who here is eventually going to have the power to appoint judges to the bench. But if you've been hearing me say that I want to be a judge, I will be at the forefront of your mind when you think about who to appoint, because I want that role. So don't be afraid of, starting before you're ready and getting yourself in the door, whatever that may look like, and being open and honest about the things that you're passionate about and the things that you want to do. And I think Danielle said it in the chat, but I think it's also really important not to close doors on yourself and let other people say no to you. I think for myself, I did not think I went to Berkeley Law for law school, and I did not think that I was going to get into Berkeley Law. And if I would have just
Mhm.
believed that and not applied, I would have not had a degree from Berkeley Law. But I got in, I did well, and now I'm a professor here. So I think, if you are willing to put yourself out there and, go after opportunities, the worst thing that they can say is no, and you're not really losing anything. So I think I'd also say that and echo what Dana said about getting to know your professors, because we're normal people who care about you and want to know about you and, just want to support you as well.
Words of affirmation, best thing ever.